This is the tallest abandoned building on the face of the earth, standing at a staggering 597 meters high. It is already the 6th tallest skyscraper ever conceived by man. In Manhattan or Dubai, it would be the crown jewel of the skyline, but it sits here in total silence on the outskirts of Tianjin, China, a place most of the world has never even heard of. For a decade, it has served as a dangerous playground for daredevil climbers and a permanent scar of national embarrassment, a towering monument to a build it and they will come fever that didn't just break a company. It broke an entire industry. But today, the air is thick with tension. Reports are leaking out. The government is desperate. The world's tallest ghost scraper is finally being brought back from the dead. Welcome back to Earth Movers. I'm Henry, and this is the incredible multi-billion-dollar rescue mission of Goldin Finance 117. To understand why this titan exists, we have to look back at the early 2000s. China was undergoing the largest mass migration in the history of our species. Imagine 300 million people, 300 million, leaving their ancestral rice fields and surging into megacities almost overnight in a desperate search for prosperity. Megacities were being birthed from the mud in mere weeks. This was the era of the signature project. For city mayors, having a landmark tower meant more than just architecture. It meant political power. It meant a promotion to the central government. Billionaire Pan Sutong saw this chaos and envisioned an ego, etched in glass and steel. He wanted a signature, a central anchor for a $10 billion luxury empire called Goldin Metropolitan, 128 floors of pure decadence, high-stakes offices, a 6-star hotel for the global elite, and at the very summit, a literal giant diamond-shaped atrium designed to house a sky lobby that would glow like a celestial lighthouse. Engineers were forced to rewrite the laws of construction. At 600 meters, the wind doesn't just blow, it attacks. The air pressure at that height is enough to snap steel like dry wood. Wind tunnel testing and aerodynamic shaping were used to minimize the sway, but the math was terrifying. To survive, they built a reinforced concrete core so massive it's like a mountain hidden inside a building. They braced it with a complex Outrigger and Belt Truss system, a high-tech exoskeleton that grips the building's heart at every level, locking it into place against the typhoons of the Pacific. Around the perimeter, they installed steel mega columns so wide you could park a truck inside them. These pillars carry a vertical load so immense, it is nearly impossible for the human mind to process. But the real engineering war was fought underground. Tianjin sits on a silty swamp, soft, silty soil, to prevent 600,000 tons of concrete from sinking into the earth. They drilled hundreds of massive piles dozens of meters deep into the solid bedrock. It was a masterclass in human arrogance, a $4 billion bet that we could conquer nature forever in the Chinese real estate game. The rules are high stakes and lethal. First, you get the land. Then, you use that land as collateral to borrow billions from state-owned banks. The project carries on without much of your own investment. It's a house of cards built on debt. But Goldin Finance was an outsider, a Hong Kong firm trying to outgamble the mainland giants without a state safety net. They had to fully self-finance a staggering $10 billion plan. They couldn't start pre-sales until the authorities signed off on the finished product. They were walking a razor-thin wire over an abyss. And in 2015, the wire snapped. The Chinese stock market didn't just dip, it collapsed into a black hole, plunging 30% in a single month. For Pan Sutong, it was a financial massacre. In just a few days, he reportedly lost $13 billion of his personal wealth. More than the GDP of entire nations vanished like mist in a storm. Then, The darkness deepened. In August 2015, unrelated to the tower, a series of cataclysmic chemical explosions rocked the port of Tianjin. Fireballs the size of skyscrapers consumed the city's horizon. Suddenly, the Manhattan of the East was seen as a toxic danger zone. The elite investors fled. The cash flow, the very lifeblood of the diamond, ran bone dry. They couldn't pay for the equipment. They couldn't pay the workers. One morning, the hoists just stopped. The roar of heavy machinery was replaced by a haunting silence. 7,000 workers packed their tools and walked away, leaving a half-finished god to rot in the smog. For 10 years, it has stood as a ticking bomb for the economy, a skeleton in the sky mocking every promise of greatness. Now, in 2025, the tone has changed. China still needs the real estate market, but it needs confidence. Finishing Goldin 117 is no longer about profit. It's about a signal to the world that China is back. But how do you finish a 2,000-foot ghost after a decade of neglect? This isn't construction anymore. It is a high-stakes rescue mission. Step 1 is a structural autopsy. Engineers must now take core samples from the very bones of the building. High-strength steel exposed to industrial pollution, salt air, and extreme subtropical humidity for 10 years undergoes a chemical betrayal. Corrosion doesn't just sit on the surface, it eats the integrity from the inside out. Every single joint in that 117-story frame, every weld, every bolt, now requires robotic ultrasonic inspection, one weak link hidden deep in the core. And the diamond doesn't just fail, it falls. Step 2 is the vertical logistics catastrophe. The original cranes are rusted husks, potentially fused to the structure. They have to jumpstart a vertical supply line that hasn't moved in a generation, retrofitting 80 high-speed elevators, travel lines designed to move at 36 kilometers an hour, through shafts that have been home only to shadows and dust. And then there's the internal systems. The original plumbing, electrical, and fire safety codes are now a decade out of date. They have to rip out the old and retrofit the new, all while suspended 600 meters in the sky. And then, the facade. The glass cladding seals have likely failed under a decade of thermal expansion. If not fixed perfectly, the entire tower could act like a giant wind flute, vibrating with a frequency that could shatter windows miles away. The new permits are issued. The money is flowing. But the China of today is not the China of 2008. Foreign companies have left. Vacancy rates are at all-time highs. Who will occupy these floors? Or is this just a $78 million mask to hide a $4 billion mistake? The diamond of Tianjin will finally reach the sky. But at what cost? Is it a symbol of rebirth, or just a desperate move to hide a monumental mistake? What do you think? Should they spend billions to save this giant? Or is it time to let the world's tallest ghost rest in peace? Let Henry know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're fascinated by the world's most massive constructions and the failures that define them, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Earth Movers. I'm Henry, and I'll see you in the next mission.